when it actually does something and actually, produces pace, podiums, race wins, more overtaking to move up the grid. But for right now, they are strictly updates, and we're hoping to see if these teams have made the right move or not. Some teams more than others. Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, definitely. I think a lot of Ferrari fans are unpleased of what they got this season, especially after they were so excited about that shakedown when the livery reveal came. Ferrari have been on the back foot, from the back foot to just pretty much tripping and falling back and busting their cranium to the white meat on whatever may happen. Charles seems like he's pretty confident that he's going to win with Ferrari, or he wants to win Ferrari. Whether that really happens or not, we'll have to see. And I also would like to see how patient Charles will be with Ferrari for these next coming years. What's going on, Galactus? First, I'm also going to say that because, I hate to miss super chats. The Regulo Diaz Uno, my twin, had a super chat earlier, says Lewis has more teammates than Max, so Lewis is the GOAT. Not even so much that, but Lewis's teammates have been far better. So why Max made the statement, regardless of when it was, that Lewis's teammates haven't been strong throughout his season, his career, is really crazy. So when you put up stats and facts, a lot of Max fans don't like that. So it is what it is. But let's go ahead and get into these updates. What's going on, Galactics, Mary Beanie, Race X210? I see y'all pulled up in the chat. Let's go ahead and go over these updates. Plenty to look into. We're first going to go ahead and start. Man, first, before we get started, the Alfa Romeo car is dope. It is dope. That livery, I am telling you, that's the best livery this season yet. And that says a lot, because up until now, McLaren have had it with the Triple Crown. They had it with their Chrome livery for their tribute for the McLaren Chrome they had back in the days when Lewis and them would drive. Like, McLaren has been on their swag with liveries, but Alfa Romeo comes out the gate with this one right here is ridiculously saucy. Even the wheel covers go well. Like, they really did a good job producing this. It's sauced up. So right now, this is the best livery to me this season. I don't know what you all think, but to me, the Alfa Romeo livery is sauced up. Like, I really do like it. Now, what they had coming out of the gate for free practice wasn't sauced up, because Joe and Valtteri both had identical failures. No, I don't want to say identical, similar failures that caused them to have anti-stall kick in, and that wasn't great. Valtteri wasn't happy on track. The team wanted him to keep running the protocol. He was like, this is pointless. Goes in, actually gets some tweaking done, comes out, is a little bit more happier about the setup. Lewis had the same situation. I don't know what was up with Yuki, thinking that he was being impeded by Lewis Hamilton when that was actually Russell. But, Lewis Hamilton is on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, tongues, and thought processes, because he's just highly regarded, because he is the GOAT in Formula One. And when you are the best and people still regard you as the best, whether they in fear of you ruining who they think is the best domination, or people just waiting for you to come back. But either way it goes, let's go ahead and get into these updates so you all can get some good sleep, wake up tomorrow for FP3 and then qualifying, so we can see when the chips are pushed to the center of the table, where will they fall, who's going to walk away the big dog. More than likely, Max Verstappen. Okay, we'll just go ahead and say that, because it's not like it's not true, right? It's not like it's not true. Most dominant car out there, good driver behind the wheel. These things will happen. So we're gonna go ahead and start with Mercedes first. And McLaren once again coming with the most upgrades galore, the most updates galore than anybody else this weekend. But Mercedes is focusing on the rear wing. Drag reduction is what they're aiming for here. Small chord, upper rear wing. Also, the second one is a drag reduction, and it is a small chord beam wing. So Mercedes is focusing highly on the rear wing area, as well as they put like a little element right there going on. But Mercedes, just a couple of things going on, not a lot. I think they're going to start pretty much focusing on 2024, but they're going to make some adjustments here to try to learn as much as they can, get as much data as they can in this season, so that they can carry that knowledge forward and hopefully pay benefits and dividends. Okay. Next team up, as far as updates is concerned, is going to be Red Bull. Red Bull also not a whole bunch, just going ahead and building on the dominant platform that they already have. Also, small differences going on. If you watched free practice, you would have saw definitely that there were some things going on there as far as they're literally Perez and Max, two different cars. Okay, two different cars set up different ways, especially in the rear wing area, trying to find which one was going to be better there. But Red Bull come in, front wing balance range. A trim has been applied to the front wing flap trailing edge. Also, the rear wing drag range. A trim has been applied to the rear wing flap trailing edge. And if you watch free practice, you would have saw the different variations that they had going on for that for that rear wing area. Even Will Buxton thinking for a moment that that he was being tricked up on by the lighting, but it actually was two different rear wing areas, and Red Bull had that going on. So with that being said, not a lot there again for Red Bull. We'll go ahead and come on to the team who's had the most updates coming into Monza, and that's going to be McLaren. McLaren first front wing. It is a circuit specific. It's balance range, low balance front wing flap. The front corner for flow conditioning, new front brake duct scoop. Also, the rear wing drag range, new lower drag flap assembly and trims. Rear wing end plate, drag range, rear wing end plate infill. Rear wing drag range, lower drag range wing assembly, and rear corner drag range, revised rear corner winglet arrangement. So they're McLaren making some of their changes so that they can try to continue on the success that they had. Now, I said it before, when McLaren kind of popped up and we saw them coming alive and then still coming forward. Now, they had a little back foot this past race, but I'm trying to see, is it going to be Aston S? And Aston right now popped back up with Alonso making podium, but Lance Stroll not doing so well, as he was several positions away from Alonso. I want to say like 8 positions. I want to see, is McLaren going to get back into form and continue to progress. Hopefully they do. This is going to be a fast circuit. We're going to see who can get the traction and make it fly. We already know the Red Bull cars can fly, but Max did have some issues in free practice, but I do trust they'll get those issues remedied and he'll likely show up for pole position. Also keep in mind, keep in mind that there is a tire allocation again this week for the qualifying. So they're going to have to use a set of hards. We're going to see how these things work out. Last time we had this type of arrangement, Lewis Hamilton benefited and he got pole position even in front of the RB19 with Max behind the wheel by, I believe, like 0.003 of a second. So having this allocation locks these teams in, and then these drivers have to bring more of their talent and their ability out, being forced into situations. And Lewis did come out on top with that situation. Mary Beanie in the super chat says, as I said, I knew at the end of April, Sir Lewis Hamilton contract. Sir Lewis Hamilton did sign his contract, 2 years, 2025, but also they did retain Russell. They believe they have the strongest driver pairing. There's nothing to say that they don't. I believe a lot of people question Perez's ability. Perez once again wrecking the car today, and that in itself is an indictment on Perez. Regardless of what Red Bull give him, he definitely has to hold the bag for that, and I was a bit disappointed about that situation. Now, also a bit different on Perez's car. It seems like Perez right now will be the guinea pig. And that's just being honest. It seems like he'll be the guinea pig. 083. What's up, my Wolfpack fam? What's going on, bro? So let's go ahead and get back into these updates. So once again, that is McLaren. Let's go ahead and get into the next team. And the next team is going to be Scuderia Ferrari. Ferrari is definitely, none of these is updates yet. So we'll just see what they upgrades anyway. But they only have 2: rear wing drag reduction, lower downforce, top lower rear wing design, front wing balance range, lower downforce, front wing flap design. So also what I would like to say is, I know I had somebody before challenged me on this, and I did say that all the time that these teams do updates, they're not always registered. And somebody based their argument on the fact that a lot of people were saying that Red Bull were giving Perez and Max different cars, and then somebody based their argument on the point that they made that if they were doing that, they would have to register it on the update sheet. That's not true. And even so, today you heard professional journalists in Formula One tell you that Red Bull used an older wing and therefore trimmed it out so they didn't have to or didn't even bother registering it as an update because it's an older wing. It's something they've already done. They just went and trimmed it out, didn't have to do it. So things like that can be done to put Perez in a different variation car than Max, which would make Perez's car a guinea pig and a project consistently through the season or the year. And we saw what happened when Lewis Hamilton was taking on the blunt load of trying to collect data, running all the experiments, running all the heavy parts in the bits to collect data. His season was not better than Russell's for that reason last season. This season, Lewis is not doing that. He's already collected that. Now they're trying to build from that. And you see where the gap is between Russell and Lewis Hamilton, and even on performance on track. So yes, Perez can be in a different car for those reasons. Okay. For those reasons, he can be in a different car. Now we can debate whether those reasons have malintention or not. That's something else. But yes, Perez literally is in a different variation car. And I do believe going forward, Red Bull will likely sacrifice Perez's season because, I mean, why wouldn't you legitimately? That makes sense. Don't sacrifice your driver who's literally in the title run at this point in time, since they've already, made this gap this large between Perez and Max. You go ahead and just say, hey, you're going to run the bits and experiments, and if it works, we'll pass it on to Max's car. If it doesn't, we won't, and you'll just run it for that weekend. So yeah. So the next team we have for updates coming up is going to be Aston Martin. Aston Martin rear wing drag range. Everybody is focusing on this rear wing for this circuit. Aston Martin having a couple of dope shots that I will show you, that they basically ran two different variations of a wing today. Red Bull did too, but the Aston Martin wing was definitely noticeable. And new rear wing flap with reduced chord on the low drag rear wing. So if I can bring that in, let me see if I can show you the different variations of that rear wing that they were running real quick, and then we can move forward with the next teams, and I'll show you that. So let me go ahead and bring that in for you, and I will show you the two different variations that they had running at that point in time. And here we go right here. So right here you'll see major different chord difference right here. And then look at the variation right there. A lot thinner, a lot smaller, not so bulky. So these are two different types or variations of rear wings that Aston Martin were running today at different times of the day for FP1, FP2. So it'll be very interesting to see which one of these rear wings they're going to end up with tomorrow, even in free practice 3, or which one they actually lock in for, which they think is going to give them the best ability or opportunity to get as close to pole or get pole position for Alonso. I think thinking about pole position for Stroll is something that we should not even consider. So let's just go ahead and get that out of our head. That's not something that's going to happen. And I can just tell you that right now. So I don't think we even need to be concerned about that. I think that's something that we've all seen Lance is not going to be able to do. So here we go right here. So we'll go ahead and go through the rest of these so that you can check out the rest of the illustrations. Aston Martin, and our next team up is going to be, I believe, BWT Alpine is going to be the next team up that we're going to bring forward for updates. And let's see, that team is right here, BWT Alpine. They are also focusing on the beam wing area, the rear section of the car. So drag range, pecker fitted to the beam wing to give revised profile to the element. Also, it was very interesting to see that Alpine were running a very old classic type of test on the car. Like I think we saw Haas with some FlowViz on their vehicle, on their car, but Alpine were running the cords, the little stringers. And you saw that definitely in the movie. If you've ever seen the movie with Matt Damon, Oh man, damn! What was that movie? It was about the GT40 in Le Mans. So I think it was Ford. It was Ford versus Ferrari. If you ever seen the movie Ford versus Ferrari, you'll see when they're testing that Lola, basically when they converted it all and made the GT car, they put the stringers all on it to see how the flow of the air was moving across the car. Alpine brought that out today for them on their rear wing and I believe their front wing element and their beam wing element to kind of see how that airflow was going on there. So that was really cool to see that type of test brought out. So BWT Alpine, not a lot, but definitely some things to see if you watch to get an idea of what these teams will do when they're trying to collect information and data. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chat. 083 got that one, and Mary Beanie, I got that one, so big thank you to you. And next team up is going to be AlphaTauri. Definitely a little bit more here, not as much as McLaren. Front wing, it's circuit specific balance range. Chord and camber of the front wing flap element have been reduced. The beam wing is also circuit specific. It is drag range. Reduce the camber and chord of the beam wing element. A second beam wing element is positioned further forward and above the rearward element. The rear corner, drag reduction. Several of the upper brake drum elements have been removed. So they remove those, which basically you're reducing drag. Anything that decreases the amount of surface area that can make contact with air, you're going to reduce your drag, but you'll lose some downforce. So they're going to have to be careful with how they play with that. So the rear view mirrors, drag reduction, 3 turning vanes have been removed from the outboard mirror stem. So once again, removing surface areas that can be impacted when that car moves through the air, so they don't have to have that drag, but also you got to be careful your downforce. It's a nice balance when it comes to that. The last but not least, now also Williams was on this list. They had a front wing change, and you also saw that Logan Sargent and Albon running different front wings. So several teams having different setups on different cars today. So here we have Alfa Romeo, which had the hottest livery come out today, which was Sauce E. I'm talking about that was saucy. That Alfa Romeo is hot. That is hot. That is lovely. That livery hot, man. So anyway, they got the rear wing, drag range, different profiles of main plane and the end plate of the rear wing, front corner, local load, new geometry of the front suspension. So those are the updates right there. Mary Beanie right there with the super chat says, Jay, that McLaren wing is horrible, but I love the Alfa Romeo livery. Yeah, that McLaren wing is not the best. I also like the fact that Alfa Romeo bought that wing out that they had before. I don't know how well it worked, but it does look good and the car looks awesome. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with McLaren tomorrow. But what we can do is go ahead and take a look at this right here. This right here is going to be free practice 1. Now, as we see Max Verstappen at the top doing his thing. Sainz, again, really kind of outdoing Leclerc. I'm going to see how that goes. Right now, throughout the season, Sainz is definitely doing a better job than Leclerc is. Right there, you got Russell at 5, Hamilton at 8. Hamilton having a bit of some concerns about his car and the setup. His car was running slower. They did confirm that. Whether they get that worked out or not, at first he was going to come in, but he didn't. Then you got Yuki right there and Lawson at 13. Now, he did finish literally in 13th position in the GP last week, but of course, 3 drivers did DNF or have the car retired. So we'll see what he does this week. He's going to have a full week to unpack and a weekend to go ahead and get as much running in as he can. So I'm really interested to see what Liam does. And then you got Albon at 10 and Logan Sargent at 12. We'll see what goes on there. But Norris at 7 and Pia at 11th. And, of course, you got Haas, Alfa Romeo going toward the back. Now, I did like to see that Drugovich was out there on track. Now, do keep in mind, I know several people like, oh, Drugovich got his opportunity and he was in the back. You do need to keep in mind. Now, I would like to see Drugovich get an opportunity to legitimately sit in that seat. But all he was doing today pretty much is running some tests, he just needed to get out there so the team could like that. It wasn't his job to go ahead and press and risk wrecking the AMR 23. Just get out there, get us some solid data. Don't do anything. Don't be a superhero type situation. And I really don't like that for Drugovich because I think he could be a better driver than Lance Stroll. I think we all pretty much see what Lance Stroll's ceiling is, and I don't think it's going to get any higher than that, but it could, because I don't want to indict him and say that for the remainder of his career he'll be on a downward decline or just null at that point. So I do hope that he improves like anybody else in their career, but I just think after all this time, we've pretty much seen, and we've also seen what Alonso's been able to do with the AMR 23, and Lance hasn't been able to duplicate that. He has no podiums while Alonso has 7 in this season. So Alonso is living it up, and Lance, I don't know what's going on with him. So we'll just go ahead back into there. And as you see, who was I going to talk about next? Yeah, I was going to go back to the Ferrari situation, but I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Ferrari are having problems, and they're going to continue to have problems. Then right here, what we have is FP2, and we will see that again, this is things kind of changed here. Okay, so we got Sainz at the top again, Leclerc not at the top. He's sitting toward the bottom. So Sainz is becoming that stronger driver. Now I can say this, at one point in time, I said, and I asked this, and I think it was 2022, I had wondered if Ferrari were going to go ahead and start supporting Sainz as their number one driver. And people was like, oh, that's foolish. They're not going to do that. Leclerc's the number one driver. I got to say, this season, even with a troublesome car, troublesome team, troublesome strategies, troublesome everything, Sainz has still managed to do a bit better job in that car than Charles. And not only that, Sainz has managed to not impact the cost cap by killing or wrecking up these cars as much as Charles has. And if Charles is going to be the number one driver, those are things that he's going to have to clean up. He can't be the number one driver going out there killing the cost cap situation with the team. He can't be the number one driver going out there making constant mistakes that are pretty much at his disposal or at his fault, because he knows what the car cannot and may not be able to do, but it just seems like he doesn't care. Not too long ago here, I believe it was 2000, was it 2022 or something like that? It might have been 2022 when it happened, or 2020. But regardless of the situation, Charles constantly makes these mistakes and kills his own race. And him jumping that curb when he didn't have to, he just needed to protect his position. And pretty much at that point in time, the chunk that he took out of his own championship campaign came by his own fault, because Ferrari had already done him in bad enough. So he didn't need to make any further mistakes to compound that. Right there, we see Norris and Pia jumping up in the top 5. Perez in third. It would be very interesting to see if Perez can get a podium. Getting that 5-second penalty last week knocked him off podium. We're going to go into a show about situations like that. And then we come on down here. Albon once again outperforming Logan Sargent by a long shot. Alonso once again in front of Lance by a long shot. This time Lance was in the car. And then as you go right here, we got Russell in front of Hamilton by a long shot as well. So we'll see what happens. FP3 is something different. Mercedes is really kind of funny about that. Like they come out, they really do the grunt work, and then FP3 is they still kind of don't turn it on. They're still kind of going through, trying to get things situated, trying to do the grunt work. And then Q1, Q2, Q3, they usually turn up and show what's going on. Although Hamilton getting bounced out of that situation last week, but he was heavily impeded upon, so I'm not writing him off on that. Then you got Zhou and Valtteri, nice little gap between them. Zhou still, I believe, has not signed an extension or his contract situation. So we'll see what happens with that as far as him and Alfa Romeo. Don't forget, Alfa Romeo will be joining Haas next season for 2024 unless something goes to disturb that deal. I believe Sauber's going to go ahead and don their name until 2026 when Audi comes in, unless they find another sponsor in the meantime. Who knows? That's quite a bit of time. That's another, another 3 years that you're going to be waiting for a team to come in without any major sponsorship, unless that team is just going to go ahead and put in that money without being on the car. We'll see, but we'll see how they're going to work that whole situation out. But Haas, Alfa Romeo, Haas, or however they're going to, suit it up, it's going to happen then. But Haas needs to do something better than what they're doing. I'm still very interested to see if at least, are they going to entertain, not even entertain, are they legitimately going to give Andretti an opportunity to get into the sport? That is what I would like to see. Like, give Andretti an opportunity to get into the sport and actually be another team on the grid. I know they want him to come in and buy a current chassis and take over that. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to come in with his own team. I believe they have a good system right now where they can bring drivers up and or bring drivers in to see how they want to fill those seats. I think it'd be good for the sport. If he gets in and he tanks it, that's on him. But so far he found the financial backing with GM. He found the money for the dilution fees, for the good old boys fee, so he could pay the rest of the teams while he comes in, and now he's getting a piece of that pie. But remember this, people often have this argument that if Andretti comes in, then the pie gets smaller. No, that's not necessarily true. If Andretti comes in and brings an entire fan base with him that brings money into the sport, the pie gets bigger. Although your percentage stays the same, the pie's bigger. So therefore, the chunk and slice of pie you get is going to be bigger. It's going to be more money in that. 18% of 100 is not the same as 18% of $1,000. So your money still does increase. These teams having this whole gatekeeping situation that where they're trying to gatekeep about teams coming in and so worried about sharing the money is utterly ridiculous at this point in time. Haas especially doesn't need to be, because they were the 11th team when Manor Mercedes was on the grid and they got their opportunity, and Haas really hasn't shown up. And I've said this several times and I'm going to say it because it's true. Spider R35 says Lando and George Russell are Max D riders. Russell saying he'd rather Max as a teammate, like he's not learning a ton of things from Lewis, is D-riding. Man, let me tell you, Russell sounds stupid for saying that. Max is not a good teammate. He's not somebody that's going to sit there and he's not a good teammate. He hasn't had very great teammates. And I already went over this and showed that. So you want to see that, go back and watch the other episode and you'll see what I'm talking about. Max Verstappen talking about Hamilton hasn't had the strongest teammates. Bro, you haven't had the strongest teammates. So for Russell said plenty of things this season that are definitely suspect. So it doesn't surprise me at this point in time, man. So we're going to see where he ends up in the Drivers' Championship, just like we're going to see with Lewis, Ferrari, and McLaren. Red Bull pretty much satisfied, but I'm telling you, Lewis said that he's going for that number 2 spot, and he's only 47 points off of Perez. And if Mercedes can make changes to this car to make it more efficient, get more pace, more consistent throughout the rest of this calendar season at different circuits, it's very possible that can happen. We're going to get a glimpse to see if that's going to happen in qualifying, not FP3. Q2, Q3 is where we're going to see that. If Mercedes continue, and it's funny because you can still say Mercedes can get bounced and still they come back in the race and manage to do something. But also Mercedes are going to have to clean up other things within their organization, especially since they're not as dominant as they were before. Max and Red Bull can make mistakes and they will be very faint. If not, you won't see them at all because the car is so dominant and it can compensate for that. And it was the same situation with Lewis in the W11, W12, all of those cars, because the car was dominant. It was a good car on track. You had a great driver behind the wheel. Mercedes can make and fumble those mistakes in those pit stops, and Lewis was able to come back with his talent in the machine and compensate for that. It's not the same anymore. You didn't give Lewis a very good machine. You didn't give Russell a good machine in order to compete in a season. So you need to be working on cleaning up these other areas so that you can at least be efficient there. So we are hours before FP3, okay? We're going to be here live for qualifying. All right, be here. I already got my honey bun. I got my honey bun right here. My honey bun ready. So be here for qualifying. We're going to have quick kickback quali. Also, tomorrow, somebody's going to get opportunity to win a $50 or $25 Visa gift card. Okay, I'm going to ask a series of questions. Got to be the first person to answer with a super chat. First person that gets 3 right is going to be able to spin the wheel for Finale Lap, our race day highlight show, and see if they get a $50, $25 gift card. I pay out. Everybody knows anybody that's won has always got their money, whether they're overseas or they're in the States. I find a way to get you that check. So with that being said, let's go ahead, lay it down, although I'm going to be working on content to set up for tomorrow. And I will see you all then. All right, Wolfpack out. Peace.